Welcome to the Honest Field Guide podcast, a weekly show dedicated to winning in entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Ginger Birkenbuell. I'm the CEO of Burt Creative, a leadership, brand strategy, and visual identity agency dedicated to helping scale brands and assist with their adaptability with the market. On my show, you get to eavesdrop in on intimate conversation with business leaders and inspired entrepreneurs, designed to give you tips and strategies so your own business can thrive. Subscribe and join me each week for laughter, inspiration, and honest stories. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my show, the Honest Field Guide podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Ginger Birkenbuell, and I'm so happy that you're joining me today on my show. I'm always loving it. I'm always happy. I always have extraordinary gratitude. And, you know, we have to have a lot of gratitude right now for the things we have in this world. We really do. Everything that you have, whatever that is, whether it's material or emotional, spiritual, have gratitude for it. And I'm so glad you're here because you really could be anywhere in the world. But you've decided to come and listen to the Honest Field Guide podcast hosted by Ginger. If you can, please leave me a really awesome review on Apple, subscribe to my show on Apple, and you can also listen to my show on Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. YouTube is really actually doing really great with my show right now. So if you go to YouTube / @Honest Field Guide or @The Honest Field Guide, you'll get my show there, and I would be so happy. And if you could make some comments, connect with my guests. I can't wait to bring on my guests, by the way, and I would love a 4-star review. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want to say I'm breaking tradition a little bit on my show today. For my regular recurring listeners, thank you for coming back again. I normally just interview entrepreneurs and small business owners. That's usually like my mantra, my passion, and my vibe. And I still have that concept in my mind when I talk to my guests today. But today I'm interviewing someone that I would say is not an entrepreneur, but because of this person's role, they are kind of entrepreneurial in their approach because they sort of have to have a creative mindset, a curious mindset. They have to be searching for things and looking and researching and learning. And that's exactly what entrepreneurship is all about. I mean, that's what we do. We're not like everybody else. We are not normal. We are not normal people because we have a different level of curiosity. And I'm not trying to be snobby about it or like I'm better than everybody else because I'm an entrepreneur. Although I might make an argument that I am. No, just kidding. But there is something different about people that have curiosity. So the person on my show today, honestly is not a business owner. But she is really in charge of some stuff that's running some really, really big business. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say, and I know that sounded cliche, but it's true. It is Women's History Month, and this woman is killing it. She's killing it. She's killing it. She's killing the game, and I'm really proud to have her on. So, but here's how I met this person. I had a show where I interviewed Darren McCoy, and he's the former creative director of Dr. Martens. And during my research with him before he came on my podcast, and you can find his episode on my podcast. I actually recently interviewed him like a couple episodes ago. But anyway, I came across a post that he shared on Instagram. And by the way, his Instagram is really cool. Just look up Darren McCoy. And like one of the people on his post was talking about the history of Dr. Martens, but not like the written history of Dr. Martens. This person was talking about the material history of Dr. Martens. Like they were walking around and going to like these little hidden, stone shacks in England or something, finding materials and looking at like leathers and oh yeah, by the way, this person making the shoe was actually part of the original team of Dr. Martens back in the 20th century. And I was like, what? They're still there? Like, I don't understand this. And it really opened my mind. I was like, there are other worlds than the one I'm in, and there's people doing really interesting things that are so bizarre and so hidden. And this person was actually titled archivist. And I was like, I didn't even know a job like that really existed. I mean, I kind of conceptually knew this job existed, but not to the extent that I do now. So I shared this on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, here's my podcast, Darren McCoy. He's amazing. He's a genius. He's Black genius, la, 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 la. And someone made a comment about my show, and that person also had a title of archivist. And I was like, wait a minute. what is going on here? And this person was in the fashion industry as well. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, I'll be darned. These fashion companies, they have people that focus on the history of fashion and they go beyond the written word. And I was like, I looked up this person. I was like, oh my gosh, she's an archivist for Levi Strauss and Company. You know Levi's. You all know Levi's, the jeans of my childhood. I mean, like, I was like, okay, you know what? I've got to find this person. Let me read you a little short paragraph about my guest. Tracey Panek is the historian for Levi Strauss and Company and director of archives at the company's world headquarters in San Francisco. She manages the day-to-day workings of the Levi Strauss and Company archives as a key corporate asset, answering historical questions, assisting designers, brand managers, executives, and other employees whose work requires historical materials in the archives. She regularly hunts for unique vintage Levi's garments and unusual Levi's items to add to the archives. Welcome to my show, Tracey.
Thanks for having me, Ginger.
I'm really glad that you're here. And I have to make note of your fit right now. So please show me your T-shirt. Tell me about your T-shirt. Tell me about this T-shirt, because most of the people that listen to my show are not visual. They're actually listening to us talk. So what's going on with what you're wearing and why did you choose it?
So I've got a white T-shirt and on it is something at Levi's that we call the bat wing. It's a red logo with the word Levi's in it. But what's fun about this is if you look at the back of a pair of Levi's, you know, we have our little design on the back pocket that looks like maybe the old McDonald's arches. This is the top of the back pocket, that shape. We call it a bat wing because it kind of looks like a bat, but that's our logo. So I'm wearing a Levi's bat wing T-shirt underneath my denim trucker jacket.
And so your denim trucker jacket, I assume, is also Levi's.
Of course.
Are either of these things vintage? Or tell me about the jacket you're wearing, because I had multiple Levi's jean jackets, and regrettably, now that I know about you and I've been reading about you and following along with vintage Levi's, I regret giving them away. So please tell me about this jacket you're wearing.
Yeah, so this one isn't vintage, although I have some. This one is it's a trucker. This is kind of a cropped trucker, and it's funny. I grew up wearing Levi's 501s, and when I went to interview for this position, I bought this jacket because I wanted a newer style, a newer fit, because this is a little cropped one, a little shorter. And so the jacket I'm wearing is the jacket I wore to the interview. It is the trucker jacket style was introduced in the 1960s. The original Levi's denim jackets were made with rivets that had, there would have been a rivet at the opening of your sleeve, rivets on the pockets, and even on the back, little cinch that you would tighten up. But while I have vintage at home that I wear, this one is a newer one.
Wow. And so I love that you said that you wore that during your first interview. I mean, I'm like, she's going all the way. She's like, I am getting this job. I am going to get.
Right.
I love that about you. I love it. So yeah, it's really amazing. And the other thing I would just say is, your accessories are immaculate. So you have these like beautiful hoop earrings on. Your hair is like long and black, and it's like one behind your ear with the hoop earring, and the other one's in front of your face. Your makeup looks great. It's like you really are encapsulating to me. I feel like very vintage Levi's, right? You look classic, but you could go to work in that. I mean, you could even walk into a corporate office or a corporate meeting in a super corporate place and not look like, why she looks too casual. I mean, that's kind of like the thing about Levi's, there's something about the brand that transcends all fashion and all styles. Like you can mix it up with anything. You can wear like a Hermes purse, with a pair of Levi's jeans. You could wear this jacket with like, a Balenciaga skirt. It's like there's so much you can do with it. And let me just say this: if I was a fashion expert, my show would really be about fashion and talking to you about all the things like that. But that is not what we're here to talk about, because I could talk to you about this all day long, because I need you to teach me some things. But I really, the reason why, first of all, like I said, I'm fascinated by this historian archivist thing at a corporation. But I do want to start a little bit more at the beginning. So I feel like someone like you who analyzes and preserves history, and you're like, you're not a regular type of person. You focus on the past with what you do, but you have to have this insatiable curiosity and desire to know things, random things. I don't, I love and respect that because that's kind of the kind of person I am too. I feel like you're trying to find the secret codes to things. Like I think about that scene in Wonder Woman. The first one, or was it the second one? Well, I don't know. She's sitting in this dark place, and she's like opening some box, and she's like opening things and inspecting it, and like looking at like where it came from, and touching it and feeling things like that. Like it's all this stuff, and I'm just sort of curious. When you were really little, like when you were a little girl, and I want to say I'm not talking when you're a teenager, when you were started coming to yourself. I mean like 5 years old. What was going on in your home? Were you? I have this vision, and validate or destroy my vision. I have this vision that like you're like this little girl going through your mom's closets or your dad's closets and like opening boxes and like looking at images and like asking questions. I mean, that's my vision of what a historian or archivist would be doing. But what was your life like as a little girl?
Well, I had a busy family life. So I've got 3 sisters and a younger brother. So there were always a lot of people around. My mother uh, studied at a design school and could make her own patterns, and so I was very interested in sewing and fashion. My mom would make us all the same outfits, matching outfits, not the same, the matching outfits that we could wear to church and in holidays, and I just had a more of a sense of clothing. Now, while as lovely as that was, and my mother's a beautiful seamstress, she did my wedding dress as well. But by the time I got into high school, my sisters and I all wanted to have Levi's 501s. They were the thing to wear, and so we gave up mom's homemade home sewn clothes. But I'll say that my early childhood, I had a very happy childhood. Lot of noise and activity in the house with all of those kids. We had chores we all had to do on Saturdays. We went to church on Sunday. We spent a lot of time together. There's a lot of music in my house. My mother's family is from New Zealand. She's Maori descent, the indigenous people there, and Mum plays a ukulele. So we sang songs by ukulele, everything from Christmas carols on ukulele to Maori songs. But yeah, it was a busy house growing up. Music, talking, clothes.
And so
There you
what's your
go.
birth order?
Number 2. I'm number 2.
So if you're number 2, I mean, like I said, I feel like you're dashing my vision of curiosity because if you're number 2, you didn't have as much time to be curious and ask questions if number 3, 4, and 5 are coming after you. Like I think about, I have 3 sons, and my oldest, was a different child before his 2 brothers came along. Where did curiosity? How was curiosity in your life as a young girl, and then that taking you through high school? Like, what was that space like? Because again, you have to be a curious person to be successful in your role.
Yeah, I think my curiosity came in asking a lot of questions. So I was curious about, in particular, about stories. So I loved hearing my mother talk about her life growing up in New Zealand, what it was like to be a Maori woman, not be able to speak. She had to speak English. Some of the things associated with what it meant to be that way. But I was very curious about that. Uh, Maybe I'm not sure how you imagine someone who gets my role to be like. But if there was something I was interested in, this is pre-internet, and I had to go to the library. I spent a lot of time at the library, uh, and at my library, you could check out not only books but music. You could get a record at the library. You could also get art. Like you could bring a picture home, which I think is such a great thing. You could bring a picture home and study it for a while. And I remember because you're making me think back, like what was I reading and what was I picking up? I was getting checking out famous paintings, copies of famous paintings like Blue Boy, even joining there was an art contest and trying to memorize those and going to the library and helping to trying to understand what those things were, because it took a lot more work. It took a lot more work than to find out information. So you had to ask questions. People were your source, or the library. Yeah.
I love that. I love that about you. And so, you know, goodness, you were doing research back then. It's a lot of crap.
Well,
And
you know,
I mean, you're just like, you, as a little girl, you weren't like, oh, I'm going to be a historian. Like, you're just doing your thing. But what happened
no.
when you got to high school? Were you, were you sort of, what were you doing there? I mean, I love the fact that your mom was a seamstress. I feel like again, like the woman I was just talking to the other day, she's a designer in London. She's a brand called Lizu London, and it's like a combination of her Tanzanian ancestry and history and family, combined with modern fashion. It's actually a really beautiful brand, and her mother was a seamstress too. So her mother made all of their clothes. Her mother, like, they would go to the market and find fabrics and make things. And it's like, I feel like that's beautiful. But once you got to high school, what was happening then if you're in this world of curiosity and creativity?
Well, I high school was a great time. I think high school's a great time for students in general. I was thinking about it because I ride my bike. I take the train into San Francisco every day, and I ride my bike past a high school. So I can see the high school field. I can see what sports they're doing. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'd want to go back to high school, but
No,
but
no, 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 no,
to
no.
see.
We do not want to do that ever.
High school is where you got to explore things you're interested in, and I started joining things. I joined the debate club. I spent a lot of time in debate. I joined the literary magazine, the newspaper, the newspaper. So I was helping to write stories. There was also a literary magazine, so it was art and literature. Um, those were just some of them. So I think it was just an exploratory. I think maybe when you talk about curiosity, I hadn't really thought about it this way, but maybe it was, hey, let me check this out. This sounds like something I might be interested in. So I even did for a time, maybe this was in middle school, drama, a little bit of dance. So all of those things you could explore, and there was nothing attached to this is what I'm going to do, but it was, hey, what's it like? What do I want to test out?
I like that you're following the breadcrumbs. I think that's really remarkable. And to me, I feel like you can identify young people by their level and volume of curiosity and how they go and find out what they want to know. And if they can follow through with it and keep on it in a consistent way. I'm not saying consistency in terms of once you figure out what lipstick you want, that's the only thing you're going to focus on. It's just like if you have something in your mind and you go look for it, I think that's the benchmark of success on down the road. I mean, whether you become a scientist or you decide to become an artist, there just has to be some type of childlike curiosity that stays with you forever. And I think that is the kind of process that carries you through to very, very old age, very old age, knock on wood, you keep your mind. I want to talk about being an archivist. Why in the world does a brand need an archivist? Like, does every single brand need one? I mean, I'm looking at like companies like Google, do they have an archivist? Do they need one? I mean, I understand the fashion piece of it, but, I just don't
Yeah.
understand. Like, and I also want to add that I did, obviously do research on you, and you've been doing this your entire career, right?
Yeah.
So when you left high school and went to college, like, what did you study? And then what was your first job? And did you fall into this, or did you know you wanted to do this? I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would ever figured out how to get a job as an archivist.
Well, I studied history, so I am the historian and director of the archives. Um, so what that meant for me in high school, actually, I had plans to go to law school, and I did for like a semester, and I missed what I liked in the high school, which was I really was turned on to history by my AP history teacher. Teachers make such a difference,
They
such a
are
difference.
so they are so they are so important. I mean, if you have a
Yes.
curious kid and you have a teacher that values and champions curiosity and can see the spark and they go for it and they seize you,
Yeah,
it's like everything
totally.
changes.
I agree, and I loved the way he taught. He also gave us a voice, and maybe it was a little one, but one of the things I remember about him is, what do you think about this particular milestone in history? And he'd go around and we'd all be able to say something. But that didn't happen in any other classes. Well, whatever his method was, I loved it, and I decided that that's what I wanted to study. I got my undergraduate and graduate degrees in history. And, when you think about what you're going to do, most people probably think you're going to be a professor. But while I was in graduate school, I went to a conference. Our professors encouraged us to go check things out. And I heard the archivist for Hewlett Packard speak. And they had hired her
Wow.
from Harvard. So she was working at Harvard, and they were like, we've got to, I guess they must have been impressed by her. She was probably a very curious person. Anyway, they hired her and she came out. I'm listening to her talk about setting up the archives there and preserving this important piece of modern history, because it's the computing age, it's the Hewlett Packard garage, all of those things. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And that kind of created the path for me. And so when I was in graduate school, I was of course getting trained in historical methods, but I also did an internship at the California State Archives, which is in Sacramento, working, and that's where I learned the professional methods about the archives philosophy and the importance of context and understanding people and things and events from documents and artifacts, and having those be a collection, and the collection can tell you about those events, and having all of those pieces, as opposed to like separating pieces out. Anyway, there's a particular philosophy about that. So I was trained, and even got some training in conservation during my work and internship during my graduate years. And then my first job out, I got a job with a high-tech company that was setting up an archives. Now,
Well, I mean,
why? I
Mhm.
know that's the obvious question of why. The founder believed that this technology would change the future of communications. And it was a paging and cell phone company, right? Pagers, remember, well, and now they're a thing of the past. But they had launched cellular service at the Los Angeles Olympics, this back in '84. And they recognized that this was going to be a ground-breaking technology, and they wanted a way to preserve it. It was it wasn't the easiest place to set up an archives, because they're so forward thinking. It was so quick moving, and people didn't want to talk about what had all happened in the past. They wanted to go forward. I was there until they merged and became Vodafone internationally and Verizon. So as often happens in business. So then I went on to job number 2, which was to work for AAA, the Automobile Club in San Francisco. So AAA is an affiliation of clubs all over the country. And in San Francisco, the Automobile Club started in 1900. And it was started by owners of cars that wanted to provide support for car owners to drive, because it wasn't popular at first. Horses and wagons were the way to go, and really cars, you had to have a special permit just to even drive in Golden Gate Park. And anyway, so I went from cell phones and cars, where I was for quite a time, to clothing. My predecessor is just a small group of us who do this kind of work, and I knew my predecessor at Levi Strauss Company. She'd been there for almost 25 years before she retired, and the position became open, and we were envious of her because she was flying to Japan, getting Levi's in Japan. She was doing some exciting things, and I had grown up wearing 501s, Levi's 501s, so I knew and loved the brand. It was American history, such an iconic American brand. So, and I had coming out of 2 other companies that had connected histories. They were in San Francisco. They had gone through the San Francisco earthquake and fire. Well, not the cell phone company, but anyway, there were a lot of similarities and so I started there. This will be my 11th year at Levi Strauss, taking over as the director of archives and historian.
I want to understand though, that first job you had, was that a role that you had to create or did it exist before you started? Or did you pitch it? I mean, I feel like
No,
that could have like that could have broken your career. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have taken the wrong job and next thing you know, I don't know. I mean, I feel like an archivist for Levi's is a lot different than the archivist for like, I don't know, name some random utilitarian brand. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like, was there someone there before?
no, it was the first
Okay.
archives. So they were setting it up. And it was the CEO who had a vision that this was an important, and it, it has been an important technology. He wanted to preserve it.
I love
So,
it.
I did that. But it wasn't the easiest environment in that, trying to,
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
because it was so fast paced
yeah, I
and
mean,
they were looking forward all the time.
it's technology, and I'm glad I asked you this question because it baffles me to know that there's probably a lot of companies that don't have an archivist. I mean, I just even think of small business owners and they don't have any record of how they do anything, and it's something that is talked about a lot about, recording processes and ideas and strategies, so at least you can position your company for potential acquisition. Like you need to have records and documents to show value. I mean, one of the things in your bio is that, you're working on the company's assets and history is an asset, especially if you have a brand that lasts. And I love that. I feel like, as you said earlier, they didn't want to talk to me because I want to talk about the past. And they're like, no, to the future and beyond. You know what I mean? So Levi's is a legacy brand. I founded in 1853. It's what I read.
Yeah.
How in the
California Gold
world,
Rush.
how do you continue to innovate? I mean, from your perspective, how do you innovate? How do you inspire? And how do you take what you're doing and finding and learning and apply that vision to the market today, and particularly the youth market, I guess? And before we talk about Beyonce, I don't want
Oh,
to talk about Beyonce yet.
okay.
Please don't
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
don't talk about
Don't go
Kendrick
there
Lamar.
yet.
Not
Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar yet. I do want to ask you a question on that, but I'm just trying to figure out from your perspective, without jumping into celebrity, um, like how can
Well,
it possibly help the current environment, current
I'll
market?
give you maybe I'll give you two examples of the last 2 days, what I've been doing at work. And I will say, for a company to invest and put money behind an archives and a historian, you have to provide value. You have to show your relevance. I mean, that's true for any part of business, but just to emphasize that. And so I am always looking for ways to add a value. In general, the biggest users of the archives are the designers who are
Yep.
going to look at pieces for inspiration, but it's not limited to just them. I get a lot of engagement from fans who want to know about their Levi's pieces. Maybe they found something in an attic that their grandparents had. So there's a lot of engagement. And so two things. That's just kind of an overall example of kinds of things I do. But two recent, very different examples of the kind of thing I do is yesterday I had a guy come in. He was doing a little filming. He lives in a ghost town. He lives and he has a YouTube channel and he's got a ghost town in the eastern Sierra Nevada in California. And he's been exploring, and guess what he found? He found a bunch of Levi's metal rivets and buttons, and he brought them in. What can I tell him about them? So
Wow.
we spent a couple hours. I pulled out some Levi's from our safe. The earliest, well, it turns out one of the rivets that he found uh, dates. It's a pre 1890 rivet, which means that there were people at this ghost town. Not a surprise because the ghost town dated to 1865 that were wearing Levi's sometime before 1890. I can tell from the imprint on the rivet. So that's one. So we kind of went over, the beginning, the early part of the company's history, the workers who wore Levi's in the beginning because that's who they were created for. These tough outdoor pants were made for workers, blue collar workers, miners, railroad engineers, cowboys, farmers. and the like. And so that was my morning. In the afternoon, and today, as soon as we finish, I've got to get ready for a presentation I'm doing at a conference, and I'm going to be talking on a panel about how Levi's have been part of punk and heavy metal scenes. so, so one of the great things about Levi's is the way it has evolved and is a way to see and view culture over time. And that's the part I love about it. So I can talk about a ghost town and what miners were wearing and the workers, and then I can also talk to people about the battle vest, the Levi's battle vest that a heavy metal fan is wearing, and we have both types of garments in our collection. And I'm not an expert in either of those, but I can talk a bit through the Levi's lens about both of those elements in our history and how Levi's is such an important way to record and highlight that history.
So speaking of music, because we can't pass up this conversation. I'm glad that you brought up that you're going to be on a music panel, because I actually have something I want to understand. So I do want to talk about Beyonce.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I did not know about that campaign until after I started researching you. It's not something that came into my world, because it's like one of my friends who's an advertiser says, just realize if you're not hearing about certain things, it's because it's not for you, right? And that's what he told me. So you kind of talked a little bit about the role that you play with, designers that, come to you and ask you questions. Can you talk a little bit more about that process? I mean, do you actually do the reverse and go to them? Do you share with them interesting things? Do you work with marketing teams? Like, do you kind of, bring up, like, okay, Beyonce, I don't know what role you had on that, but did something come in your mind? You're like, you know what? I was just doing some research and I was just looking back at some, country music, this or that with Dolly Parton and just all these things. And I really think we need to be finding, an icon that can talk about this. I mean, I'm in a country band. I have my own country band called Utah Carol. Yes.
Nice.
And there's a lot going on with Beyonce and country music. And I get it, as an Americana singer. When I went to look at the campaign, I looked it up, Reimagine. I was like, oh my God, they nailed it. I mean, it's totally modern. It's totally beautiful. It's wildly sexy. It's country music. And I'm like, and it's aligned with her brand. It feels vintage, but modern. And I was like, let me find out from Tracey, like, what was your role in all that? Did you have a role?
So, yeah. So I'm part of the marketing team.
So you have too many hats.
In the marketing team. Yeah.
That is crazy to me. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, it certainly makes sense for what we do. So when the idea of this, well, let me step back and I'll I mean, I had a supporting role. I'm not the one who came up with the idea, but it's just to give you some sequence, because a year ago now, Beyonce releases her new Country Carter album, and there's a Levi song on there. So of course we're taking note, right? I'm also taking note because in 2001, Levi's they actually worked with Destiny's Child. They, in fact, Destiny's Child, Levi's brand was probably one of the few at the time that Beyonce and the rest of Destiny's Child nobody in New York or the design houses were interested in them. But Levi's asked them to help launch a new product called Super Lows, which were these very low, tiny zips on the pants, and launched those. And also to help, we were sponsoring the Video Music Awards that year, and the award for new artist. And so I went back and looked in the archives. Well, we have a poster of Destiny's Child. There's Beyonce right in the middle wearing the Super Lows.
Where is the archive? I mean, is it like in a Laters of the Lost Ark kind of a warehouse? Is it like that big?
Well, maybe not that massive. We're in San Francisco. So remember, San Francisco.
Oh, that's right. Tiny.
Real estate.
Yeah, tiny.
So we're at our headquarters, world headquarters in San Francisco. There is the archives there. We have a large space for San Francisco, but we can't possibly keep everything there. So we also have some offsite.
Go ahead.
Space.
Finish your story about Beyonce. Enough of that.
Now I've lost track. Here we go. Okay, so she comes out I look in. I also can see in the archives that we worked with her before, and did a little research on her as well, because the album came out with her song. It was not. It came out organically, so we hadn't worked with her to create it. I like to think that part of that is she was wearing Levi's before. I mean, she wore them in the Coachella homecoming tour that she did. She was wearing Levi's cutoffs, and I think I like to think, and I certainly shared that part of that was probably because we were willing to work with her early on in her career. So anyway, flashback to March last year, she comes out with the album, and by the way, what a great thing. Here's an icon, a global icon, and she's going to do something challenging. She hasn't released a country album, but she does it. And she includes a Levi song. She changes it up a little bit with two I's in the spelling, and it gives the team a chance to kind of think, what can we do? This is a moment, and so the marketing team, of course, reached out and worked something out. But the idea came up. We looked back in the archives, and for me, my role was, what have we done related to, what have our ads been in the past? What is related to country that we've done? And of course, there's plenty, because in the 1930s, Levi Strauss and Company selected the cowboy as its marketing symbol. So we pulled out all of these things as food for thought, and the campaign became, let's recreate some of our classic ads and do a Beyonce twist with her music. And you'll have to look again at the ads. We've incorporated elements of our early history. So on the wall, like in the laundrette, where she goes into the laundromat, you'll see, if you're looking for it, you'll see one of our Levi's cowboy ads. It's just kind of on the one wall. So there's like little Easter eggs peppered throughout that relate to our history. At the end, she's holding a newspaper. And on the one side is one of our historic ads from the 50s that are in there. So being able to play into our Western and cowboy roots to add a modern touch and a modern reinterpretation of our ads is been what the campaign's all about.
And when you're working on these things with the marketing team, are you an afterthought?
Uh, I'm lucky to be able to be in on what's going on, what's upcoming. So when the campaign first came out and let's do something, it was what can you share? And being able to have quick and easy access, so we have a digital tool, and of course I know the collection, but share that with us so it becomes food for thought for what they start to create. You have to kind of be there in the beginning, so you're part of what comes into play when they come up with a strategy.
I like that. Music and blue jeans it's mystical. I think about, if I was working at Levi's in your role or any role there, I would be like, oh my God, Bruce Springsteen, Lana Del Rey with her song. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like trying to find all the musicians that are doing all the things. I don't know if Robert Plant wore Levi's, but, there's lots of iconic images of him in his tight jeans. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much you can do with it. And it's like, I feel like, what is the balance that you have to take as a historian with when I think specifically about musicians, really? Because sometimes you're dealing with political messages that you may say, oh, well, we love that image, but no. Or maybe you're like, you know what? We're an authentic brand, and this is American history. I think about Kendrick Lamar, who I know was not wearing Levi's, unfortunately. But, his image does remind me of images of Jimi Hendrix on stage at Woodstock, burning a guitar, he had, or it reminds me of, images of Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA with his blue jeans. And now we have this image of Kendrick Lamar, going through the Super Bowl, and it's like, there's 1,000 of these images now of him with these jeans on. So as a historian, are you able to sort of bring in, Levi's, political sort of his history as well, to sort of say, this is good, but maybe we should kind of not focus in this area. And this really is like that's why I was asking you earlier about process. I know you can talk about visuals and images, but you have to also have other knowledge that goes way beyond that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I have to say I can't really think of an example where that's been part of the strategy. We got
Okay.
to avoid. Um, it certainly probably it comes into play. I think that Beyonce, in this example, it was a moment in time. She's releasing the album, Levi. It just was a matchup in all cases, and definitely we want to get somebody who's going to be an authentic representation of the brand. So who can best represent that is going to be part, but that's probably less of what I do as the
I love it.
historian.
Well, so Jimmy Carter, I was so excited to see that post, offering condolences, and I had no idea that there was actually a history with Jimmy Carter and Levi's. It was shocking. I was like, oh my gosh, and it's like you think of like images of Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, sorry, and yeah, he's wearing jeans a lot. You know what
He's
I
wearing
mean? So
Levi's.
I know exactly.
Yeah,
He's wearing
yeah,
Levi's. Can you talk about I mean, I don't know if you had a relationship with Jimmy Carter professionally, of course, with the brand, but
yeah.
why was it important that Levi's found this relationship and maintained it? And then, of course, you put up this beautiful tribute.
Well, it is part of the beauty of Levi's. There's the Levi Strauss and Company corporate organized history that happens at the company level, and then there's the organic history for people who have worn Levi's that doesn't really have the company itself doesn't create that. People just choose to wear it, and Jimmy was one of those. President Carter
I
was
know
one of those people
we want to say
because
Jimmy.
he
I know
was such
he
part
was
of the.
he was a
Yeah, he
human.
was just such a down home.
He was approachable. Yeah,
Right. That's why we like to say Jimmy. And who gets to say Jimmy as the president? Anyway, uh, he was someone who first wore blue jeans in the White House, and it was okay to do that. And I remember reading up about him after he passed away and during his campaigning, maybe he was getting close to winning the nomination, and and they asked him, when are you going to do? And he said, I just want to go home and get in my jeans. And
he said that. Oh my gosh!
yeah,
Do you actually have the audio of that you've
well, it
ever?
was written. It was in an article
Oh, okay,
that I
okay.
read. But and then there were these images of him because in our newsletter we have a newsletter collection as part of the archives. People wanted to know when he was elected. The employees wanted to know, hey, tell us a little bit more about him because we're seeing this president. He's wearing Levi's and who is he? And he was just he actually kind of encapsulated, or he just personified the Levi's values, which is just kind of down to earth. He's wearing his jeans. He's just like every other person, which is why we're wanting to call him Jimmy instead of
Yeah.
President Carter, who he was. So he chose to wear Levi's. He wore them, during his career before he was in the White House and as governor there in Georgia. But he also became a friend later on to our president and one of our former presidents, the Haas family, Walter Haas and his son later. And the Haas family always went out on outdoor trips, fishing and hunting, and they would invite him. And so in our archives, we have pictures of Jimmy and his wife and the president's just out, they're riding horses, they're out near a river fishing. And that was fun to not only for me to kind of review and see that, but to be able to share that post about him when he passed. Yeah,
And when you talk about your newsletter, are you talking about an internal newsletter or are you
yeah,
talking about Unzipped, the Unzipped
internal.
staff?
So
Okay.
this is when he was first elected president. So this is before
Oh,
pre-internet, and we had a printed hard copy, those
yep.
of the newsletter that it would go out to employees. So they're a great source in our archives for finding out about what the employees were interested in. Some of our earliest letters would post so and so's baby when they're having marriages when the company was much smaller. But yeah, it's a newsletter collection that we have. We call it the Saddleman. That one was called the Saddleman because we had a character that we created called the Levi Saddleman that appeared on our ads. And that's what the name of our newsletter was.
Wow, I love that. It's interesting. Are you also responsible for audio history and audio archives, or is that a different department?
No, so we have a digital collection, and audio is very hard to preserve. So we have digitized most of our U.S. advertisements, which are a great, and that was part of what we were able to do when we were preparing for this campaign. Let's see what the ads have been. Of
For
course, YouTube is
For
great.
Beyonce's
Yeah,
campaign. Hmm.
and for Beyonce's campaign. But YouTube is also great. You can go find some of our old ads. But yes, part of the campaign, as part of the collection, is audio. And here's the fun part. So remember, I said that we had Destiny's Child help launch our super lows. So we also have digitized our radio ads. And there's a radio ad from 2001. It's at the Video Music Awards. They're on the red carpet, and someone is interviewing Beyonce. And they're interviewing Destiny's Child, and they're saying, "Hey, what are you wearing?" And Beyonce, "Oh, we're wearing Levi Superlows, and we call it Bootylicious." She's describing how she looks, and then he says, "What do you have to say? I know Levi's is sponsoring the new artist of of the year. What do you have to say about them?" And she said, "Well, remember, you're a singer, not a speaker. You keep it short, but you can hear her." And that was something else I shared when we were looking into to working with her. So yeah,
I
we do
love
have
that. Do you sort of are you in a strategic role? I mean, are you also strategizing around we should be doing this or we should be looking at this, we should be trying to find this? Because I was looking at some of the things that you've talked about lately, and somebody brought to you a photo of the original of Levi, right? Levi Strauss, or original photo. I read
Yes.
about this, and they were like, it was in some random place, and some person brought it to you. I mean,
Yeah.
what is your process of discovery, I guess? I mean,
Yeah.
I think about when I go to flea markets and I'm exhausted after literally after 2 minutes. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're in a role where you are have to be in a constant process of discovery, but you also have to have some strategy along those lines too, because otherwise you would just drown in curiosity.
Yeah. And I don't have the time to look for everything. So fortunately, because I do because I write articles and do social media, people reach out.
Okay,
And
that's
that's what
good.
happened in this case. So it turned out to be a distant relative of Levi's, very distant. I can't even remember exactly what the connection is, but had a family photo album, and there Levi's photo is. So what you're talking about is February 26th is Levi's birthday. And every year we usually typically we do an open house, and we invite employees to come in, look at things. Um, and kind of celebrate our history. But this year we didn't, because we're in the middle of a move and renovation. We're getting a new archive space. So instead I made a post, and I said probably my favorite picture of Levi is one where he's not looking like the businessman. He's outdoors. He's holding a hat in his hand. It's sun shining. He's got a cigar in his mouth, and he's kind of smiling. And he looks like he's saying, in my mind, he's like greeting somebody. And it's such a personal picture. I think it's a great portrait of him. And it
Yeah, it
came
is really.
from a man who reached out and said, "I've got this in my collection. I've got this in my album."
I love that. And I mean, I love looking at old pictures. I mean, we have old photographs everywhere. And if you're fortunate enough to have a family that collects and preserves and restores and holds on to photos, it's really joyful, and it makes you feel like you have a connection to humanity beyond your immediate family. And it's sometimes hard to do that. I mean, as a Black American, I don't have as much historical records of my ancestry that other people have. One day, at least not yet, one day I'm going to find the money, I'm going to earn the money, I should say. I'm going to earn the money, and I'm gonna hire someone to do a long, DNA or something, some kind of a family tree for me. The way I remember when First Lady Michelle Obama was when they were elected to the White House, there was a whole history that was done, which they do for all American first ladies, right? And I'd love to do that for myself. So
Yeah.
I can imagine how I know this person wasn't your family, but Levi Strauss and Company's your family now in some ways. I know when you saw this photo, it must have felt really good. I'm really wondering, what is the favorite part of your job? Like, I was thinking about, so NASA is a client that I work with, and I was at the Sundance Film Festival this past February. Um, and I was there as a journalist. I was covering films, but not covering the films. I was actually covering the people that work behind the scenes, like you. But I was specifically focused on people that are in marketing and design and things like that. And I met someone who actually did the graphics for a film called Sally, which National Geographic did, which is based on Sally Ride, the first American
Oh,
woman to go to
yeah.
space. And it's a beautiful film. But what really jumped out at me was the historical references to NASA with the typography and the posters and the fonts and the colors and all the things going on in the film. And I talked to the designer about that, and he worked with an archivist at NASA that's specifically focused on typography and fonts and branding, which I was like, are you kidding me? Really? There's a job for that. Someone who's maintaining not just the current brand, but all the things. And I know this is a little bit of a roundabout question, but if I were an historian, I would say, you know what I want to look at? I want to look at the branding. I want to look at how did this font and this logo transform from the beginning of time. And then I want to work with Hollywood to make sure that NASA shows up properly, effectively, and in an inspirational way in films. Like that would be
Huh.
the favorite part of my job. What about you?
Well, I like that. Actually, what you describe is part of what's the favorite of me. Maybe not typography that I'm looking for, but it's the hunt. I love
The
the
hunt.
search and the discovery. And I got to tell you about Sally, since you
Do
brought
you
it
know
up.
about, see, this is what happens when
Yes.
you talk to historians. I swear to
So
God.
when and part of it is, as you say, being curious. And I'm reading. I don't know, an article somewhere. I can't even remember where it came from. And I read about Sally Ride. And in the article, it said that she had gotten married, and she wore to her wedding ceremony a pair of Levi's. I was like, "What?" Anyway, this started my path. This started my path.
Oh my
So it
gosh.
turns out that Sally was, in fact, a Levi's fan and loved 501s. I got in touch with her partner, and I was trying to see if there was still. So Sally passed away of cancer, sadly. So I got in touch with her partner. That she no longer has any of Sally's blue jeans, but she shared a picture with me. This is a year before she became the first American woman in space. She's at a NASA training. It's in New Mexico, I believe, and there's a group of people. So Sally went to Stanford University, got a double major in physics and English literature, at a time when getting into physics was not, even the professors weren't happy that she was there. But she ignored that. And after she graduated, she read in the Stanford newsletter that NASA, for the first time, and you probably know this, was going to open up applications to potential a new school of astronauts that would include women for the first
Mhm.
time and
Yep.
people of color. So there in this astronaut training is 35 people that are potential astronauts. Sally's over on the far right. There's I don't know. I can't remember all the names of them, but guess what she's wearing? She's wearing a pair of Levi's 501s with blown out knees. And she's just got this air of confidence, kind of standing there with her hands on her hips. And someone who's about to not only make history on ground, but up in space, becoming the first American. And I was so excited to find just that little gem, that then took me down the path of, I got to find out more about Sally. And that's what I love about my job, the hunt. The
Oh my
hunt
gosh.
for
I mean, this is like the process of discovery that blows my mind every time. I mean, you're going to have to see the film. It just
I
finished screening
will.
at Sundance.
Wow.
Yeah. And I met the director. She's amazing. She's a mom, has a beautiful little daughter who's running around just at Sundance, and her husband, who actually happens to be the designer. I'm going to actually, he's coming on my podcast next month because I
Uh-oh.
want to understand what that process was like working with a director, suppressing your ego and just really being in service to the art and the film and the history of NASA. It was really interesting. So listen, this has been amazing. I have some rapid fire questions for you. We have a few more minutes, and I hope I don't stump you. I don't think I will, because for God's sakes, you're a historian. I mean, gee, there's no historian I've ever met that's ever been stumped. Like, do you know
Uh-oh.
what I mean? But this is about you. So, first question: are you using any artificial intelligence tools?
Yeah, it's so funny you asked that. I am. So the short question is I am. And
Okay,
this
don't
morning I
say which
told,
it is unless it's like a Levi thing, because I don't want
no,
to.
no,
I'm
no,
not out here
I'm not
promoting
going
a
to, but
like
what
to
I was
promote
going
an
to tell
app.
you was it had to do with this talk that I'm giving on heavy metal and punk and Levi's in it. And I was trying to find out more information about res metal and the women who were in it. And the AI tool was really great for that.
Yeah, I love that. And this is a question I hadn't thought about asking, but you keep talking about punk. Um, and I mean, this might put you on the spot. I don't know if you're ready for this, but what are the punk leaders or punk bands or iconic punk bands that are wearing Levi's, that were wearing Levi's from like the
Yeah,
60s and the
I can
70s?
share two. One, because we have her Levi's in the archives, Patti Smith, the punk poetess of the 70s. So we have a
Met
pair of her
her. I
501s
met
in the
her.
archives. The
I love it.
Ramones were wearing 501s in that famous picture where they've got leather jackets, blown out knees. Yeah, there we go.
I mean, the Ramones were great. Like, I don't know if you've watched any. I mean, I believe you probably are a documentary watcher. But there's a documentary out that I just watched with my husband on the Ramones. We're huge Ramones fans. I mean, big
Oh, I
time.
gotta
And of course,
watch that.
we have all the Patti Smith books. I mean, she's amazing. And we did meet her. We did meet her in New York once, and it was fun.
It's the
Um,
50th anniversary this year of her album Horses, and she's touring. And I got a
wow,
ticket for her show when she comes to Oakland and San Francisco.
I love that. Okay, so Beyonce. Besides Beyonce with her beautiful jeans, and I love the ads. I mean, listen, folks. You've got to look at the Beyonce campaign with Levi's. It's completely shockingly beautiful and amazing. But what living artist do you think outside of Beyonce is wearing Levi's really well right now?
Well, I'm looking back
I
at
know. I'm like,
folks.
don't look back. Look at the
That I mean,
now.
that's
Look
what
at
I
the
do.
now.
I think about Madonna on a girly show tour and she's wearing cutoffs. I'm thinking about Taylor Swift, who appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, I think 2014, wearing a pair of Levi's. Lots of I'm good with the past, Ginger. That's what I do.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay. All right. So, um, what is the most incredible object you've ever held in your hands? That's Levi's. Like what? Because you said that the favorite part of your job is the hunt. What's the thing that
Mm,
you got so far that you're like, oh my God, this is
okay.
incredible?
Well, there's a lot of cool things. So this doesn't mean that the other things aren't equally amazing, but I got a tip that there was going to be an auction and I was going to be in London when the auction was happening. Albert Einstein bought a Levi Strauss jacket in the 1930s when he immigrated to America and became an American citizen. Didn't know that he had one. Anyway, he wore it so frequently. He said he only needed one coat, didn't need haircuts, didn't even wear socks. But he had this one leather coat. It was a Levi Strauss coat. I went to the auction. I got to go handle it and bid on the jacket. We were successful. Luckily, we have it in our archives. But and the great thing about it, it's not only to handle it. And by the way, I handle it with gloved hands. That's how we take
Of
care of it.
course. Of
But
course.
the Einstein jacket has a unique scent. Albert Einstein smoked a pipe, and the jacket still has the scent of the Pope
The
of the
pipe.
pipe. And that's what's kind of unique about it. So I not only got to handle it, I got to smell the scent of it.
How in the world do you preserve the smell? The scent. How do
Well,
you
I
do?
learned about this. I learned about it the hard way. So when people, I have a lot of VIPs and people that come in and look in the archives, and I would take the Einstein jacket out and show them it. We keep all of our garments in most of the garments in acid-free boxes, muslin tissue, acid-free tissue. Well, I discovered that you can lose a scent when it's in being stored in material that are absorbent. So the scent
Hmm.
will transfer. So what I learned is that I need, and it's now stored in a plexiglass case, which can't absorb the scent. And that was something that I learned. And so we changed about that. Yeah.
I love that you're still learning. I was talking to a woman yesterday. She's in her mid 50s, and she said she's getting to a point where She just really doesn't want to learn anymore. I mean, she's tired. She's working hard, and I struggle with that. I'm not that way. I'm not there yet, and I hope I never get there. And talking to you inspires me more. I have one last question. So I'm thinking about maps where something's lost forever, or there's like a something somebody says, we heard about this. There's like a legend. We heard about this thing. We know about it. We don't know where it is. Have you ever had that task given to you and you still haven't found it? It's like, you know what I mean?
Sure I have. Sure I have.
Seriously? Oh my
If you
gosh.
if you
It's like
can,
the Lark of the, what is it? The Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost
right,
Ark.
from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Of course there are. There's several things that I would love to have and find. Um, we, I wish I knew where to find Marlon Brando's Levi's from his from the Wild
Ooh.
One movie in 1953, that
Oh
kind of
my
created
God.
that image of what the rebel looks like. Um, Marilyn Monroe's Levi's that she wore in her final film, The Misfits. Love to
Oh
get
my
my hands on
God.
those.
Yes.
Can you
I mean, I was not,
putting it out
this
there?
was not on my bingo card at all. Like, I was not expecting you to say those iconic people. I mean, that's big time. That's big time.
It's big time.
That's big
Yeah.
time. That's big time. Lipstick or lip gloss or nothing? Last question.
I kind of prefer a lipstick.
Okay.
Never
All
been
the
asked that
time?
question.
Do you ever do lip
Not
gloss?
all the time. Sometimes I just wanna, you know what? I like Vaseline. Is that a weird thing? It just
No, it's
I
not a
like
weird
it. It's
thing.
kinda glossy.
No, it's good. It keeps your lips from being chapped. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a new thing that's a combination of lip gloss and lipstick, and I love it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
you
love
look
this
great,
brand.
by the way. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I need to look great. I do. I've told you at the beginning, like I gotta fight, man. It's starting to creep up on me. I gotta get going here.
You are
Um,
glowing. You're glowing.
Thank you. Well, listen, Tracey, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I loved every minute of it. You are so much fun. You are so amazing. You're like the kind of person that I would like to go hang out to dinner and like just have like long, endless conversations. It's kind of like when I was with I went out with an author one night for dinner and we had the most amazing conversations. And I was like, it reminded me of college. I was like, oh my God, I forgot what it's like to
Yeah.
sit around your dorm and talk about like philosophy. Like, you know what I mean? It's so great. So I really appreciate you coming. Thanks for this conversation. Everybody. Thanks for joining me on the show. Tracey's amazing. You've got to follow her on LinkedIn. She does share really interesting things on LinkedIn. I wish she would share more. I wish because this was great, but this is what the podcast is for. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out now. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me on the Honest Field Guide podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Tracey.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The Honest Field Guide is produced by the team at Burt Creative, where brand and multi-channel strategies are designed to help you get attention, grow, scale, and keep up with the pace of change. The music on the podcast is written and performed by Utah Carroll. You can find their songs everywhere online to buy or stream. The opinions expressed on the Honest Field Guide are solely those of the hosts and guests.